Hello and welcome to Writer's Routine. This week we're chatting to Senta Rich. She's worked in advertising, written radio plays, scripts for film and TV too, and her new novel is Hotel 21. It's all about Noelle, a kleptomaniac hotel cleaner, and the stories she uncovers. We talk about why her home is a very collaborative, creative one, how offering opinions on her husband's architecture or her son's music often helps her grapple with her own ideas. Also, you can hear how writing for telly has shaped the way that she works. And we think about her having so many projects on the go. It must be quite deflating sometimes. Surely not all of them can be picked up. So how does she carry on believing that things will work out?
And that's really important, to have that hope. Otherwise, if you knew in 20 years' time where you would be, you probably wouldn't do it. But where I've got to now with my experience, right, and it's really important, this is really important for new writers. Everything you write, everything, even if it never sees the light of day or you write it and you hate it at the end of it, everything you do is making you a better writer, without a doubt. So, you just have to think that every time you write, you're getting better.
There is more with Senta Rich in this week's Writer's Routine. Yes, welcome along to the show. It's Writer's Routine. My name's Dan Simpson. Thank you for being there. This is where we take a look through an author's working day to see how they get things done, to see how they take their idea, they plan their day, their life, their space, how they try and put ducks in a row and get everything in order to give them the best chance of getting that story down on the page. Now, for just a few more weeks, for just a month or so, we are sponsored by Plotter. They're helping to power this show. You've not got long left to make the most of this fantastic deal. They are powering us just like they can power your writing. Plotter is a writing tool that does what the title says, really. It plots, it helps you plan your books the way that you think. It lets you outline faster, organise smarter, and turbocharge your productivity. There is so much in there that can help you out, from the very easy to navigate, brilliantly designed digital corkboard they've got where you can colour code, you can skim, you can move, you can transfer, you can clip, you can cut. Makes it really easy to find your characters and all your places. You can tag them too. What's really caught my eye as I've looked through Plotter over the last year or so is it gives you ideas on what to do next, on where you can go. They have over 30 story templates from some of the best writers around, screenwriters, writers who have worked on like shows that we all know on the telly, authors on there too. And it's just something outside the box of the normal kind of hero's journey, 3 or 5 act structure kind of way of storytelling. Now, it's nothing for you to lift and drop, for you to copy and paste. It just gives you ideas of where you can go next, maybe what can happen, what you can turn to. For us writers, we spend a lot of time faffing around the window dressing of simply getting ideas and words onto the page, right? But this is a software that helps you with that very, hopefully, simple process. Just getting an idea down. Now, the best way for you to see what Plotter does and how stunning it looks and how helpful it can be is by getting to plotter.com and taking a look around. While you're there for just a few more weeks, you can get 10% off the software with this show. For under 20 quid, for $22.50, about £18 when I last checked, you can get access to this software forever to help you plan and plot your story, to make you organise smarter and outline faster. And you've got just a month or so left to make the most of this, so if you fancy it, you need to be quick. To get the deal, use the link that is in the episode of this show. Makes it easier for you to click. It's go.plotter.com/routine. That's go.plotter.com/routine. This week, we're chatting to Senta Rich, who is busy. She's got a lot on. And as you'll hear, she's got a lot of energy to do that with. She's worked in psychology and philosophy. She worked as an advertising copywriter. She's written radio plays, scripts for telly and for film. She's got a movie in development. She's had a TV series commissioned. And I think you'll pick up very quickly that a lot of that, I think, seems to come from the creative community home life that she's built around her. She works with her son and her husband and her son's mates. They're all kind of creating their own thing around the dinner table, even through the weekends. And I don't know, without getting a bit too woo-woo about it, maybe something in the atmosphere picks that up and helps Senta. I don't know. I'll leave you to be the judge when you hear the chat in just a sec. Senta's new book is Hotel 21. It's all about Noelle, a kleptomaniac hotel cleaner. We talk about why the idea came to her on holiday and why then she had to start writing immediately. She simply couldn't wait. We talk through why she does a lot of writing by hand, how much the initial idea that she had for her character's arc stayed with her during the writing. You can hear how questions about Hamlet and Shakespeare helped her figure her plot out in 2023. And we run through how she divides up her time between paid and non-paid work and how she manages to sort her energy out between the two to give her enough go to get things done. There's a lot on the way. I think there's a lot for you to learn. I really enjoyed chatting to Senta. I think she mentioned it was like the first interview podcast of anything of this sort that she'd ever done. So yeah, Senta, I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you really like listening too. And we kick things off with what Senta Rich sees around her in the place where she sits down to write.
I am in my office. Now it's kind of a bit of a shared space. The bookcase behind me is a mixture of my books and also my husband's books. He's an architect, so he has a lot more books than me. Place is covered in books, and I have a long black, not very deep bench, like a desk, that has my laptop on it, but I can slide up and down it because I do a lot of writing by hand still. So I like to move away from my laptop and then write in a notebook. So that's quite good practically. But to be honest, I don't write all the time down here. I write a lot in the kitchen, which is really bright. And sometimes my husband's an architect, like I said, and my son is a music producer. He's at college now. And often the three of us sit around the kitchen table and we work together, often for the whole weekend. So it's kind of like a little writing creative hub place, and I really enjoy that. And sometimes Mars's friend, who's a filmmaker who script writes, he joins us. We all sit around the table working.
Wow, that sounds slightly idyllic, I would say.
What do you think? I thought it might sound chaotic to other writers, but it's just the way I just like to be around people. And but I do use the office when I'm frustrated. I will come down here and shut the door and try and work through something. Yeah.
How much do you find that helps when you are in amongst the chaos of architects and film directors and music producers? How much do you find the solitude of your office does help kick you into gear?
Yeah, I mean, like my husband says, I could write anywhere. I could write in a shed. I could write in a building site. The only thing I can't tolerate is the sound of drilling, but I don't think anybody can. But yeah, when I need to really focus on something, I shut myself away as kind of a sign that we have to do this right now. We have to get this work done because it's not working. So it's kind of a place where I know I'm not leaving that room till I've done something, kind of thing. It'd be a bit tough. But saying that, I would come down here. If the house is too noisy, I'll come down here, if it's just too much noise. But I'll write anywhere. I'll write on a bus, Seriously.
Let's just plonk you back in your desk then. So looking around you, you've got the books, and have you got much of your own planning or inspiration around you and amongst architects' blueprints, I'm imagining?
Oh yes, I have lots of plays and books and screenplays printed out, and I also have on the desk piles of notebooks, A4 notebooks that I fill. And I also have a brand new iPad that was bought for me as a present 2 years ago that I still haven't opened.
Oh, wow. I want to talk about the notebooks, and you mentioned how you write. We'll come to that in just a tick. Am I right in thinking you live in Ireland? Is that right?
I do, yeah. I live in Dublin, yeah.
So I don't know how built up your area is. Obviously, Dublin's the capital, so it's one of the busiest places in Ireland. But have you got a window? Have you got glorious rolling hills outside?
No. We live right in the city centre, and we have a very traditional kind of city garden on 2 levels, and my office is on the lower level, so I look out and up at a garden with the light coming in. Yeah. No, it's not rolling hills and valleys and things like that. It's nice. And I do.
If you were to open a notebook, if I were to open one of your notebooks, rather, would I be able to understand anything that's written in it? Is it written in a very much a way that only Senta can read and decipher?
It's not that it's in code or anything like that. It's just my handwriting's really bad because I write so fast. And I think that you would not be able to read it because I can't even read it myself if I leave it too long. So I have to type up once I've written it.
Is it very detailed? Is it just kind of sporadic notes that you're making?
No, it's writing. So if I'm writing a screenplay or a script for TV, I will write very quickly, exactly as I see it. And then, and then if I'm writing like the novel or book 2, I will write as I want it to be, as I'm writing it, as though this is it, I'm writing it. But there's a lot of freedom in freehand, I find. And I can be as messy as I like. I can go back through the page. I can put a line through something. I can carry on, or I can suddenly go, no, I'm not going to do that. I'll circle something. I'll move it around. I'll carry on. And then once I have a feeling, I know where I'm at, I'll go to the computer and I'll type it up. And then as I'm typing it up, I'm changing stuff and I'm moving things around. I work really quickly, and that's just the way I am, you know. I'm just the way that the ideas come and things like that. And I think it comes from TV writing. Probably it's kind of shaped me a bit like that, because you have to write really quickly, and you have really tight deadlines. And I think it's just fed into how I am and how I write.
So the creation of your story, that tends to happen in the notepad, and then you'll transfer it over to the laptop.
100%. Anything I start with always starts handwritten in a notepad. Yeah.
We get quite like nerdy on the show about particular, I guess the way the screen looks. When you're moving it over to your laptop and using a word processor, something like that, are you caring about how it looks? Are you bothered about what font you're picking?
Oh yes, completely. I'm going in now, and now this is the draft. This is draft 1. So yeah, I mean, I don't just, I have it set up, it's ready, and it's a file, and I start. So for instance, with Hotel 21, I wrote the first 4,000 words while I was away with my husband and my son in Portugal. I'd had the idea a couple of days earlier, and then I just thought, I'm just going to try this, because I had this voice and this idea of this character, Noelle, the hotel cleaner who takes things. She doesn't see it as stealing. And I just really wanted to experience her. And I thought, I'm just going to try this. I'd been reading Japanese books quite a bit, and I really love their style of literature. They're very into small kind of details. And well, anyway, the books that I was reading were, and I thought, maybe I should try and write it as a book. So I did the first 4,000 words very quickly. I would say, I don't even know how long it took me, but it was quick. And then I quickly ran up to the room, typed it up very quickly, like a draft 1, before I wouldn't be able to read my writing. I mean, that's basically how it works. Now, I am a pacey writer. I think the Hotel 21, some of the feedback has been, and I like that it's pacey. And that's just how I That's just how I do it. I suppose it's kind of like I get full of all the energy, and I just want to go. And so I get frustrated when the flow's not going, and I just know I need to work through it.
So that moment in Portugal, then, you're there on holiday, spending time with your family. What was it about? What was that compulsion that you had to get this done now? Why couldn't you sit and, as many other writers might do, why couldn't you sit and brood over this idea for a couple of weeks until you returned back home?
Oh, Dan, I wish I knew the answer to that, because that sounds really good, doesn't it? That sounds much more sensible and a much better lifestyle. I just don't work like that. I always work on holiday anyway. I don't like to say that because people think that it's a bit crazy. But my husband does as well, and so does my son. So we just kind of have these, like we have the little hub around the kitchen table. It's just kind of, we do that when we're on holiday as well. We go to the beach and we go for trips and we do things, and that's fine for the day. But then we'll say, oh, we have a day here today. And everyone goes, oh, yeah. And we get out our laptops, So I suppose I'm lucky in that sense that I have a family that are similar to me.
Well, let's talk about that hub then. So how does it work? Are you all doing your own thing? Is there much creative sparring, discussions about what you're working on? Are you kind of canvassing ideas?
Oh, yeah, totally. Totally, yeah. I mean, my son will take off his, his headphones and go, listen to this sick beat, and then he'll play his tunes, and then Dave might be sketching and he'll show me something, or he's got a problem with a building and he shows me something, and I often shove bits of stuff for them to read. I say, well, will you read this? That's the first thing I did when I wrote the first 4,000 words, Hotel 21. I said, guys, need you to read this. And I asked my son first because he's 15, and I said, you only have to read the first page. Because I knew if I said to him, I want you to read 4,000 words, he'd probably go, can I do it later? So I said, you just have to read the first page and just tell me. And I thought if he reads to the end, I might have something here. And he did. And he said, yeah, you should just keep going, Mum.
What words of praise from a 15-year-old.
Yeah, and then no, for sure. And then I asked, well, for my son, I feel a bit bad because ever since he was able to read properly, is what I would say, and he had, he's been asked, or, he's been of that kind of level of understanding. So I don't know, 8, 9, when they're not just watching cartoons all the time or whatever. But he has been asked his opinion on everything. I was writing animation scripts, and I used to get him to edit for me because I wanted to see, did he find them funny? So he's often brought in to read stuff, and he's just very much part of that because he's he's 19 now. He's a great, he's a young person, and it's great to get his opinion on stuff.
Can I ask? And this might be a very tough question to answer, and that's just that's nothing to do with you. It's just it might be unanswerable. It seems to me that you've written in a way that is quite different from a lot of authors, and it is this slightly collaborative setting, in that you're getting ideas from people who are creative but not necessarily in your field, and you're also having input into how your husband is, I don't know, fixing some building, how one house fits to another, I don't know what goes on, and you're having an input into your son's sick beats. Like, how did all of that affect the way you wrote and how your story ended up, do you think? Did it play much impact at all into the final novel, the fact that these ideas are being thrown around and you yourself are thinking about something else that's perhaps not just your book?
That's a very good question, and I'm going to try and answer it. So what I think the environment is one that is supportive of creativity, right? So it's about the ideas of sparking, all that sort of stuff, but nothing that happens within that actually informs the story itself, if you know what I mean. But it will inform the energy levels I have, the commitment I have, the excitement I have about making something, going on and also there are so many similarities between different types of art, architecture, music, writing, film. We're all doing the same thing in a different way.
How harder would that have been, do you think, if you were working on this novel? And I'll praise you this by saying it's clear that you're quite a ferocious creative anyway, that when you have an idea, you have to get it down no matter where you are. But the fact that your husband and your son are also in this creative space, when you're perfectly fine to work on holiday, you're perfectly fine to while away the weekends talking through ideas. Did that make it easier for you to constantly be working and writing, as opposed to if it was just you on your own in that office all the time?
Easier? I don't know. Writing's not easy. Nothing's easy, right? But that doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. And I think, for instance, my son is away now at university in London doing music. And last week, my husband was, which is really painful, by the way, when your child leaves home. But anyway, and my husband was away on work, and I was at home completely on my own for 10 days, working at the kitchen table by myself, and I loved it. So it wasn't that I need the hub and I need the other people. I was totally fine. I was working on a screenplay, and I got into a flow for the whole week, which was really great. So I don't miss it when I don't have it, but I really enjoy it when it's there, as long as I can write. As long as the environment helps me to write, I'm happy.
Did you you mentioned how having the people around it, that creative energy is helpful. It does help you kind of push on. When they weren't there, I know you said you really enjoyed it, but were there aspects of the going that was a little tougher, not having sounding boards, not having other people buzzing and working around you?
I don't know. I just like both, Dan. I suppose when I'm on my own or I'm in my office, I get a lot more done, right? Probably. But, it all suits me. Like my husband said, I could work on a building site. I mean, I don't think I could. That's just him making a joke. Yeah, he's just making a joke. But he's just making a joke that I seem to be able to write anywhere. But in the same way, he can work anywhere, and so can my son. So it's not just me. But yeah, I know I'm not the normal kind of writer who has special spaces and all that kind of thing. I think I was a stay-at-home mum with my son, and at the time I was an advertising copywriter, freelance. So I really had to fit in around him. So I'd basically drop him at the school gates, be really calm mum, bye, have a nice day. Yeah, as soon as he was gone, I was dashing home, working for 4 hours. That's all I had till I had to pick him up. So I think some of that probably has played into the way that I write now. So has TV writing, definitely, with all the deadlines, and which I love, and sometimes the quick turnarounds. There are quick turnarounds because there are problems, there are issues, and things come up, and suddenly scripts got to be changed, and you've got overnight or even a few hours to fix something. So I think that's probably played in. And also, I was an advertising copywriter working in agencies with people, in teams, and art directors as my partners, and we would work as teams. And now I have a screenwriting partner. We've been working together for 7 years. So I really enjoy that, the collaboration, which was the strange thing about a book, because it's not that collaborative. So actually, Dan, I'm wondering if now, with your questions, that maybe that's why I enjoy the sitting around with everybody, because the novel is quite singular, for want of a better word. And I probably just like to feel that there are people around, you know. But basically, I would get up, I work out first thing in the morning. I keep fit. I do that 5 days a week. I would do more, but my physiotherapist won't let me. So I exercise, and then I have breakfast, and then I will just write. So probably from 9:30 in the morning, sometimes 10, depending on how long I worked out for. And then I will write till lunchtime or until I'm really, really hungry. So it depends. So it might not be till 2:30, and then I'll have some lunch, and that might be an hour. And then I will go back to writing, and then I will just write for as long as I possibly can, maybe 6. That's what I do. That's what I do, Dan. I don't know whether you should publish that.
No. This is what's...
I sound like a crazy person.
No. This is what's fascinating, because it's not the same for anyone. So many people I've spoken to have to almost give themselves permission, give themselves a time, say, right, from 9 until 12, I'm going to work, and then I'm free to do the rest of my things. And to be honest, that's how I would do it. So the idea that it's almost this tap that sometimes you find it tricky to turn off, that's...
Well, I don't like turning it off, but let's say I have to go to the hairdressers, you know, or I meet a friend for lunch. So the day will not go, but my ideal day, that's my ideal day. And also it might be mixed. Like I might be spending 2 weeks. So I spend half my time. So per month, let's say 2 weeks on paid work, and the other half of the time on unpaid work. So for a while there, the book, when I was writing the book, Hotel 21, that was included in my non-paid area because, you know, I didn't know what was going to happen with that. So the screenplay I did last week was non-paid work, you know, but I have to split it and work with as much energy and enthusiasm for the paid work as I do for the unpaid work, and vice versa, because sometimes I feel sluggish, you know. I do sometimes feel a bit sluggish with projects, but, you know, I have to make sure that my energy levels are up and that I'm fit. You know, you've got to be able to run for the bus. Do you know what I mean? In case you have to suddenly work really quickly and fix something and, you know, whatever. With TV writing, it's very much like that. In
that writing day, and if you're spending, you know, a lot of it ideally writing and working, how much are you getting done? Are you working like on an average day? How much will you write for the novel?
Oh, so for the novel, on a writing day, well, I don't, you know, I might do on one day, you know, it'll be a few thousand words. But then the next day, let's say, I go back over it, I might decide I don't like what I wrote the day before, for whatever reason, or some of it. It won't ever be some of it, it will either be all of it or not. And I'll cut it and I'll go again. You know.
Are you fine with that part of it? How frustrating is that to have slogged for hours away the day before, and, you know, you wake up the next morning and think...
No, because I think it's all part of the journey. It's all part of the writing process. And you have to understand that I think, thank God I noticed. That's the way I see it. That's not quite good enough. That's not quite hitting right. That's not exactly what I was. And I don't like the way this has gone. You know, if I feel it's cliche, or I feel it's not interesting enough or something, you know, I'd be quite hard on myself about that, but not in a bad way. I think it's absolutely fine to write stuff and then say it's not quite hitting the mark. You do it all the time in screenwriting. It's a normal thing. So I just apply that to the book as well, and also to book 2, yeah. When
your writing day is over, so when you feel like you can't do any more, or when other things get in the way, 6:30 in the evening, I think I might know the answer to this, but are you any good at switching off, at kind of parking the idea and completely taking you away and focusing your attention on something else?
I I think so. I mean, I do what anyone else. I might go out for a walk and then, we have dinner. I watch television because that's that's also work. So in the sense that I watch it for pleasure, but I do need to watch it, need to watch the new shows that have come out and stuff like that. I used to make my son watch stuff with me and then he'd have to listen to me analysing it all. And then I read. So the one thing I wish I did more of was read more novels. So I always have a book going, but I'll only read, my reading time is really at night when I go to bed, and I will read until I'm literally falling asleep. So that's the only thing I wish I did more of.
On a novel day when you are sat there to write your book, how do you know what it is you're working on every day? Is there a grant for Hotel 21? We'll get more into the plot in just a second, but how much of a grand master plan was there?
That's a good question. Yeah. So what was lovely about the book, writing a book for the first time, was I felt it was new and exciting. It's first person. And what I had was just a very rough idea about a woman at crisis point. She doesn't know that she's a crisis point, right? But she is. An opportunity comes for change when she starts her 21st job in this hotel, and who she meets there and what happens to her and the journey that she goes on will give her the opportunity to change. And will she do it? That was my very rough idea. And that was enough to start writing, because I knew there were certain benchmarks that I would be reaching. And that was kind of what I started with, because maybe I started too soon. Well, I didn't, because it worked out, but going forward, you don't know whether that's always going to work, right? So you have to be ready to change for different projects, I think. But for this one, it worked well, that I roughly knew who she was, and I was really excited to explore that and go on this journey with this character, with this hero, and see how she would navigate this. And it was just really exciting. And when I wrote, so there were a couple of weeks here and there where I couldn't write the book because I was working on other stuff. And this is the one thing, with screenplays, it's a little bit quicker. But with the novel, when I came back to it, I would have to take 2 days of reading straight all the way through from page 1 all the way to where I'd got to, so that I was back in the book. And every time I came to do that, I always have a tiny little fear that I've lost the voice or something, But I say to myself, you haven't, because you never do. But I have to do that. I have to read through. So it will take me several days to get back into it. And I have to do that every time, if it's more than 3 or 4 days. So that's quite time consuming. But it has to be done,
I get emails from writers who aren't yet published quite often. And I thought I would ask you this, because it's interesting that you take the 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off paid work. So you're writing quite a lot of the time without an idea, perhaps, that anything will come of this in the bank account. When you're starting a new project for free, how do you get past, no matter for where it is, how do you get past the doubt that it is good enough? Because I'm sure that comes to everyone at every point when they're starting on something new. How do you push past that fear that this might all be for nothing, that the story isn't worthwhile, that nothing's going to come of it? What do you do? Okay, so it's a really good question, and I want to answer that really carefully. So back in the day when I first wanted to be a screenwriter or script writer, you believe
what you write is going to get picked up and made. And that's really important to have that hope. Otherwise, if you knew in 20 years' time where you would be, you probably wouldn't do it. But where I've got to now with my experience, right, and it's really important, this is really important for new writers. Everything you write, everything, even if it never sees the light of day or you write it and you hate it at the end of it, everything you do is making you a better writer, without a doubt. So, you just have to think that every time you write, you're getting better. And that's the right way to think about it, and write lots of things. Don't write one screenplay or one book and keep sending it out for years and years and years. Keep sending it out for years and years and years if no one's picking it up, but write something else. Keep writing, Don't just say this is the one thing I've written and then try and get it published and published and published and published, or try and get your screenplay made. And, you have to keep going and write other stuff.
We'll have more from Senta in just a second. I very quickly want to remind you that if you're enjoying the show, this is always the most awkward bit for me to do. But if you are enjoying the show, because I'm British, so it's awkward. Once again, if you are enjoying the show and you'd like us to kind of carry on bringing you these chats as often as we can, the way to do that, to help us and support us, is patreon.com/writers routine. By doing that, by just slinging a couple of dollars a month our way, and I know times are tight, so anything that you can send over is really appreciated. You get our eternal thanks, you get bonus content, there is merch, there is even a way for your book to sponsor this show. And it doesn't cost a lot, as I say, and I'll repeat it. I'm so appreciative of anything that you support us with, because I know it's a very strange time at the moment to keep bills in order. So by getting to Patreon, I'm just so thankful that you would get involved with that. It just helps us carry on bringing you these chats. It's pretty much a one-man team, so it helps me make the time to get the guests, to read the book, to do the interview, to do the editing, to get this out there, to do all of that. It just helps us carry on doing it as often as we can. And I am very thankful if you could help us out and support the show at patreon.com/writers routine. Let's get back to it then with Senta Rich chatting about her new novel, Hotel 21. In this part, we hear more about the idea and about the character of Noelle. Also, there are some bonus Margaret Atwood tips in there. Always brilliant to hear from Margaret Atwood. You can hear too what questions she asks herself to unravel more of the story. And we jump back in talking about Noelle, the star of Hotel 21, and her character arc. You might remember Senta said earlier on that it came to her at the beginning, really, how this character was going to play out. But how much did it stay with her and stay strong and stay as originally intended while she was writing it over the next year or so?
All screenplays, all good screenplays, not TV so much, is about transformation of character. And if all stories, really, the stories that I like are about transformation. Screenplays are always about transformation. And TV has now, it's a great space because it's not always, you can take your time. A character might transform gradually over time, and you have so many other different stories and blah, blah, blah. But with novel writing, for me, if I'm going to write a novel, it has to be about transformation, for sure. Yeah, I mean, that's just the way I'm built now. But aren't all stories about that? I mean,
well, they are, but I don't know whether everyone, when they're starting writing novels, considers that. So with Hotel 21, when you had the idea of Noelle, who was this hotel cleaner on her 21st job, and she was taking things as she went, how much were you, well, I guess it's tough for me to ask. You were taking that idea and you were kind of putting it in the idea of this hero's journey, but then you started writing. So when you had that initial idea, what questions were you asking while you were writing that made clear the actual plot for you? What happened next, I guess, after you had that initial idea is the question.
The idea for the book, came from 2 days before. I'd been staying in a small hotel in Lisbon And I annoyed the cleaner because I didn't leave the room till after lunch, and I kept asking her to come back like you would in a bigger place, right? Saying, oh, sorry, I'm just not quite ready, whatever. And when I left the room with my son, she was standing outside with her arms crossed and gave me a really dirty look. And I went, oh my God, I'm in trouble. And then I realised, I said, oh my gosh, she has been waiting outside my room to clean it when we could have easily stepped out for 10 minutes. We wouldn't have minded. I just wasn't on the ball that day. In fact, my son and I had been working, right? I'd been on my laptop doing a TV job. I had to get finished and he was doing his music. So we're just happily chilling out, in one of our little hubs. And when I came back that evening, so I felt really bad that had happened. And when we came back that evening, my hairbrush was missing. Now, I don't think she took it now, but at the time, I got really excited. I was like, a revenge lift. She took my hairbrush. Oh, my God, this woman, who is she? Does she do this all the time? Does she take things people are not going to phone up and complain about? And it was going around and around, And so this idea of this woman that does, so I started to think about it. Obviously, I thought about TV first and film. I was trying to work out how it might work as a script because that would be my first port of call back then. And then I was reading some Japanese novel at the time that was very short. And I thought maybe I'll write it as a book. So I started with the idea, like I would in a screenplay. What is the crisis point for this person? You have to, for me, at what point, why this person, why now, right? Is a really good question to ask yourself when writing stories, I feel. And so I had to think about what is this crisis moment? So what has she been doing until this point now? Why is she like this? And how is she going to handle going through this transformation? And will she transform? Is also the question, because not in all stories, characters don't always transform, right? But they're in a chaotic story. And then at the end, maybe they don't. Like in Hamlet, he doesn't really resolve his problems, does he? He just is in constant angst. Should I kill the king and avenge my father's death, or should I respect my Christian values, thou shalt not kill? And he just stays in this quandary and doesn't really transform. So not all stories do have it, but for me, that's what I enjoy the most, and that is what I would always start. Crisis moment, the point where if something doesn't happen, it's going to be pretty bad. This person cannot continue like this. And that is what it was like for Noelle. It was a crisis point. And for me, even more of an interesting point about her was that she doesn't even know it. She doesn't realize. She thinks she's got life sorted. So it's really exciting for me. Even saying that now, I feel really excited about it. And I really miss writing that book, I have to say. It wasn't easy. No, writing's never easy, but I really enjoyed it.
Why, when you first had the idea, was it a book when a lot of your background is in screenwriting? I mean, I think this is becoming, or it's been optioned for a TV series, I think. So why was that your first idea? Let's get this down as a novel, not in something else that perhaps you knew better.
Yes, I really don't know the answer to that, except that I had just read a first-person book, and I literally started off as an experiment, Dan. It was, can I do this? And I had my notebook or a notebook beside me, and I just picked it up and started writing. And I kept writing. I was writing. I was the character. I was really enjoying it. And one of the things really appealed to me was that it wasn't a script. It was funny because I said, I'm inside the person's head. I don't have to worry about who she's going to talk to about things, what we're going to see. I still believe novels can be show, don't tell, of course, but I was inside her head. I felt really free, you know. We could learn about her from her own point of view of her life and herself and others, you know. And it was really, really, really exciting, Dan, really exciting. So I finished the first 4,000 words. I didn't know that it was 4,000 words until I typed it up and I could see it was 4,000 words. But I just really enjoyed it so much, just writing as first person Noelle. Yeah.
Writing first person, but also with this key theme that she is at a crisis point but doesn't realise it. That must have been quite tough. This massive moment of, I guess, dramatic irony that you are spending all your time in this character, but also she doesn't know what you know as the writer of her inner monologue. How difficult a balance was that to tie the idea of what you can let on and what you can't let on, what the audience needs to know, what your character needs to know at the time?
Yeah, I suppose, Dan. Okay, so I'm quite an instinctive writer. I've been told that as well. So I really trust my gut a lot. It's not always right, of course, but I do. And when I was writing, what I would do was I would just become Noelle, and I would just write her as if I was her. And I wasn't really thinking about what she just, it's hard to explain because you're right. I'm obviously also guiding the story. I'm pushing the story. So I think with the novel and with screenwriting, you have an idea of where you're going, right? So it might just be with the book, I had kind of benchmarks. So I know so for instance, right, I knew when she arrived at the hotel, she was going to go down to the staff room. And in that staff room, she was going to meet these people that she was going to work with, but I didn't know who they were yet. I just knew that these people were going to be these were the people who were going to change things. And so that's all I know. And I know that's the next bit that I'm going to write. So then I can just jump in and I'm writing it. I'm writing it. Now she knows she's got to go to the hotel and she's got to go down to the staff room. So that's okay. That's not new. But when she gets into the staff room, then that was all new. And I just had to trust my gut that the people would appear. And they did. Margaret Atwood is amazing, right? And she said, and I can't remember whether it was an interview or she does a masterclass as well, but I either heard her say it or I read it. She said, and this is really good for new writers as well, I think. She says, sit down at your computer or your notebook and it will come. Okay, so you really have to just turn up and trust yourself, your imagination and your gut instincts and the idea of the story, and you will get exactly what you need. So the characters Noelle meets, these really strong, diverse women, very different, appeared to her, and that's how characters come in anyway. That's nothing special. That's how we come up with ideas. And they're all sort of, I don't know, I suppose they're all sort of probably parts of me then, right? And parts of Noelle. I don't know. Oh, Dan's getting very philosophical.
No, that's all right. I mean, well, you've got a degree in philosophy, so you're allowed to do that. Lastly, all your experience as a screenwriter before you started writing novels, how much impact did that have in the structure of the book and also, very simply, the words you were getting down onto the page?
It definitely did have an influence, but at the time I didn't realise. So because I was writing this book and I felt really free, and I was like, and it's not a script. I'm inside the character's head. I can do what I like, right? I felt very free. But naturally, instinctively, and also because I am a scriptwriter, which requires quite a lot of training, script writing, right? And when I look back at it, I could see that the pacing and the structure and everything was very much, my instincts had taken me along that road, but I didn't necessarily treat it like a screenplay. Now, when it came to dialogue, right, screenwriting, writing dialogue, if you're a professional, it's a given that you can write great dialogue and that you know what that means. And so for the novel, I did apply those. I'm not saying that the dialogue's great, blah, 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 whatever. But I was very careful with that. So the dialogue is, you know, when people are talking, there has to be, there's more of a screenwritery feel to that, I think, that it's not, no one's ever saying what they mean. No one's ever being, you know, there's lots of subtext in everything. But in the book, you know, you can then go on and qualify it. If I'd written a piece of dialogue for the book that I said, you know what, that dialogue, I just don't need it, but I need this bit of information, well, I'll just bury it somewhere else. So I would definitely, like I was asked by the editor, one of the chapters was a bit long. And she said, I think we can just cut this chapter, I said, okay, well, a couple of pages. She said, yeah, maybe 2-3 pages. I said, fine, no problem. I took most of the dialogue out. And I think that was because I didn't really need it, you know, whereas, and I think that's probably strange for people to hear, because scriptwriters, you think you will hang on to as much dialogue as possible, but you don't really. You want every word to count, you know. Does that make sense? Oh, and the funny thing, Dan, I want to add to that is that I was saying to you that I was working on a screenplay last week, and writing the novel has impacted how I write screenplays, which is really amazing. I'm surprised by it. I can't really articulate how, but there's something's happened that it's just for the process. I'm not saying that my writing screenplays is, you know, much, much better now or anything like that, but there's something about how I write it now. It's almost like it's in more flow, because the book really flowed. And so it's definitely had so that's really excites me, because it's all about being a better writer, getting better.
That is it with Senta Rich in this week's Writer's Routine. I hope you really enjoyed it. I think there was a lot for you to take out of that might help the way that you plan your day, your life and your space. And hopefully you can siphon off some of Senta's just immense creative energy. The new book is Hotel 21. You can pick up a copy now. In the meantime, you can support the show, patreon.com/Writers Routine. You've not got long left, about a month, to make the most of our deal with Plotter. They are supporting the show. They have been for a little while. go.plotter.com/routine. Have a look at what the software can give you. Have a flick around the website. Then if you do it through that link, go.plotter.com/routine, you get 10% off for the next month or so. We'll be back next week with a brand new guest on Writer's Routine. You can also drop us a follow on Twitter. We are @WritersPod on there, and you can get in touch using the contact form at writersroutine.com. And I will see you next week with a brand new Writer's Routine. Until then, bye.